Well. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just going to sort out a couple of technical issues here. Zoom is playing up, actually. I can't really see you guys properly. But thanks for tuning in, folks. Bit of a quieter night this evening. We have one of our members from our community who has had an incredible result. But whilst we wait for him to tune in, just want to thank you guys for being here. What a wild few days it's been. You know, I mentioned earlier today that I went out to the Australian Medical Professional Society conference the other night. That was a big one, folks. That was one of the best nights I've had in a long time, only because there were so many wonderful people there sharing some absolute bona fide truth that we are so desperate to get out to the Australian people. I was absolutely blown away by my support girl out there. For some reason, you're coming up as the main speaker here. So let's see if we can just fix this really quick. This was the problem I was having the other night while I was trying to live stream from the event. I was unable to zoom in because we had this little problem here with Zoom. Yeah, very strange. Anyway, but basically, folks, this event the other night was incredible. Salim Malhotra. He is one of the most preeminent, Asim Malhotra. He's one of the most preeminent cardiologists out of the United Kingdom. And he's turned into a whistleblower. And the data that he presented was so damning that it will truly shock the world when it comes out just how evil this whole thing was. They actually injected billions of people, literally billions of people, under false pretenses. So we'll talk more about that shortly. I just want to welcome you guys to the call. We have Deb. Thanks for being here, Deb. A bit of a smaller call tonight, which is actually really nice. We can make it a little bit more intimate. We can even open up the call to a few people if you'd like to have a chat. We have Lily Pond out there. Thank you, Lily, for joining in on the call. We have Minties, whoever Minties is. Thanks for being here. Peter Kelly, how are you, mate? Thanks for tuning in. Steve Jessup, great to have you here. And Sue Pryor, thanks for being on the call here, Sue. And yeah, folks, like I was saying, that meeting the other night was hosted by Graham Hood. And we had one of the first speakers was DJ Tidy. Tyson will be on. I'm trying to move it to Monday night. Sorry, Ben is stuck. He's saying it's open and saying launch meeting. Yes, launch meeting, bro. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me. Press that lol. Yeah, and we had DJ Tide will be on the call. I'm hoping for Monday night. We were scheduled for Tuesday, but I've got a bit of a double booking. But his story, folks, was incredible. So he was how can I say, not really awake to the agenda at all. He got his first injection thinking it was the right thing to do for the community. He didn't want to get grandma sick, and he wanted the music industry to kick back off again. Anyway, he had a severe neurological response to the first jab, and he was surrounded by 7 neurologists. They wanted to know everything else he had ever done in his entire life, but they had no interest in knowing about the jabs at all. And to his amazement, anyway, he had fits, seizures, convulsions, the whole thing. His symptoms started to settle down, and then a couple of weeks later, they came back to him and they said, "Well, you know that COVID injection you took, it's probably not working anymore. So we're actually going to recommend you take another one." And him being totally oblivious to the whole agenda, he took a second COVID injection, and then he had the same reaction immediately after, convulsions, fits, seizures, the whole thing. And that's when he obviously realized that it was the jibby jabs. Sorry, folks, I'm just going to turn my Wi-Fi off here on my phone because it looks a little bit slow. And we are just waiting on our mate Pedro, who seems to be stuck out there in cyberspace. I'm going to have to try and send him another message. It says that, sorry, do I have to? No, he should just click on. Oh, you guys just clicked on. Hold there. I'm going to send him the link again. Bear with me, folks. This is where we need the elevator music. Sierra Fox, cue elevator music. All right, try this again. And then after that, we heard from, this Dr. Malhotra. And his story was quite incredible because his father was one of the leading cardiologists also in the United Kingdom, was very well established with the, I guess, the medical fraternity, the upper echelons in the United Kingdom. Was obviously very close to Boris Johnson and the whole, I guess, the bourgeoisie of London. And anyway, so his father took the COVID jab. At this stage, they thought there was a genuine contagion attacking the world. And his father was 73 years of age, but a very, very fit and healthy 73 years of age. And not long after the jab, he rang his son, Salim, and said, look, I think I'm having a heart attack. And he said, look, they were talking on FaceTime. He said, look, I think I'm having a heart attack. And obviously his son said, call an ambulance. And due to what's obviously been happening all around the world, the ambulances were incredibly slow. Now, it took about 35 minutes for the ambulances to arrive. And the doctor watched his father actually pretty much die on FaceTime. Incredibly tragic. They managed, that's when he started to investigate the jabs. Sorry, it looks like my signal's a little bit slow. But that's when he started to investigate the jabs. And since then, he has become one of the most important whistleblowers in the world. So I've just got a message here from someone. That's from Melanie. It's a seam. Too funny. I will get it right one day. Thanks, Melanie. Thanks for the heads up. But that was, an incredibly touching story of how someone who can be part of the establishment, but who has good honor, good conduct, good integrity, and who actually cares about the well-being of humanity, even though they've been misinformed, they're willing to learn new information. And I think that's the vital distinction, is that we have what was presented the other night was that there's a lot of people who have been presented with the facts and have tried to ignore them. And that's willful ignorance. And that's deliberate ignorance, and then being fined to turn a blind eye to the consequences of that. And this is where Dr. Asim is very, very different. He was, so now you've got me confused, Melanie. I don't know what his name is. I'm going to have to Google it. I've called him Asim. I've called him Aleem. I'm going to stick with Asim for now. But, oh, hey, Rosetta. Rosetta's entering the chat. But that's the very, very, the big distinction is that he was presented, obviously, with a situation. And then he started digging through the data. And he found out and presented that they knew that the jabs had no efficacy whatsoever. And then they also knew that the data was showing that in the trials were very, very short. We're talking about several months for most of these injections, anywhere from sort of 6 to 12 months. The data showed that in the testing, they had all sorts of catastrophic reactions. And so they knew they were dangerous and they knew they were ineffective. This is the whole thing. But they continued to push them out. And then once he realized this information, he's become, I would say, I guess it's something that we could debate, but I would say with his credentials and his background and the way that he's able to articulate it and deliver this data, he would have to be in the top 3 whistleblowers in the world right now. I think you would put Dr. Malhotra, Dr. Peter McCullough, and I'm not sure who else you would put in that top 3, but he would be one of them. And to see him speak the other night was incredible. We are just looking for Pedro. It seems everyone else can get on except our wonderful Pedro. He's having some technical issues, but I will waffle on for a little while. Welcome Christopher Lambert to the call. Welcome Greg. Welcome Dennis. Leslie McKenzie. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Tom as well. And anyway, so after he spoke, we then heard from Dr. Melissa McCann. Now, this is, once again, information that gave me incredible hope, and one of those moments where my faith in humanity was really restored once again. Dr. Melissa McCann, you can just see in her, she's a good soul. You know what I mean? Like after a while, you get to sort of pick who's a good soul and who's not. They say don't judge a book by the cover, but sometimes you can. He can't get in, but she is she just represents everything that we thought doctors were: highly intelligent, extremely caring, most motivated by patient outcomes. What's the best outcome I can get for my patient using all of my options to me? and living and practicing by the principle of do no harm first and foremost. And to see her, gosh, I'm just in one thing that I find impressive is intelligence, and just a very well-read, well-researched woman, highly intelligent, and with the gift of delivery of this data. And it gives me goosebumps, because if this data, if what I saw her present, because she basically shared with us the whole brief of evidence, if you will, that's going to be presented in this class action for all of these injured Australians. And if it's one of those moments where you know that if that information was shown on television, the world would change in an hour. In an hour, folks. So powerful was this information. And this is what keeps, someone like myself going, and what keeps us all going, is that we know we're going to get this information out there eventually, and it will all end in a day, folks. But whilst the mainstream media is still flowing, it still has a monopoly on the flow of information, the shit show continues, doesn't it? So we have to be patient. And I know all of you have to juggle this thing on a daily basis, whereby we have to find a way to remain optimistic and hopeful, whilst we patiently have to watch the shit show rolling on all around us. And it's difficult, folks. We have to walk this tightrope, this balancing act of not being overly depressed and crushed by the weight of information that we are all holding on to, and still trying to get it out there and somehow remain positive, chirpy, and ambitious, and wanting to make the most of every day of our lives. Quite an incredibly difficult thing to do. Pedro is having an absolute shocker here, folks. I'm going to email this to him instead. Please bear with me. Cue the elevator music. Give me 2 secs, folks. Oh, Mr. Pedro. Bear with me, ladies and gents. We will find a way to get him in here, emailing this link. And hold on. Oh, now my Wi-Fi is not working because it's not connected to give us a better stream. All right, we are better. We are in business, folks. Stick around, ladies and gentlemen. The show goes on. We'll see if our mate Benny Pedro can jump in. And then, so that from Melissa McCann, it gave me, I guess, confidence that there are good doctors out there. I think most of us have been horrified by the compliance and the lack of doctors who have spoken up. She's one of them. I think she would have to be, it's hard for me to think of a more important medical professional than her, other than John Larder. I think John Larder really was the first one to really bring some credibility to our cause from a medical professional perspective. And then what was interesting was that, Dr. Malhotra, he said that Dr. Karen Phelps, as you would know, what happened to her, she's been vaccine injured. She has obviously disappeared off the scene, hasn't she? We haven't heard from her for quite a while. But Dr. Malhotra said she has reached out to him privately and said, whatever you do, keep going. Just keep going. So there are these massive cracks appearing in the damn wall. These massive cracks appearing in the damn wall. By the way, folks, if you want to see everything that I'm speaking about, I did get a rough recording that night on Zoom. My hand was getting tired and shaky. My camera would not zoom in, which was incredibly frustrating. But you can hear from the doctors themselves, and I promise you, it will give you some hope. And these are the sorts of events that we need to do more often. I'm just going to check the list here and see if we have our mate Benny Pedro. We've lost Ben. Oh, Mr. Pedro, where are you, sir? Where are you? And then who else did we hear from? We also heard from, obviously, Graham Hood was the MC. He did a fantastic job. I just love Hoodie. I know a lot of people get upset that Hoodie hasn't quite wrapped his head around the magnitude of the weather engineering, but he'll get there in his own time. So just give the man patience. Everyone wakes up at their own time, folks, in their own way. There is no, I guess, no cookie cutter, natural progression of this thing. We are all unraveling a lifetime of programming. We're all unraveling this incredible trauma that is pushed on us from the moment we are born. So please don't, if hoodie isn't fully all over the weather engineering just yet, give the man patience, for crying out loud. Does my head in. But he did a fantastic job the other night. And then we heard from Senator Gerard Rennick. And I tell you what, he is a very, very, very impressive man. If there was ever a man I felt like would make a fantastic prime minister right now, it's him. Him and Malcolm Roberts, I think, would make two outstanding statesmen right now. This is something I would love to see. I would love to see an emergency interim government set up for this country with Senator Gerard Rennick, Senator Malcolm Roberts, Senator Alex Antic, and we put someone like Melissa McCann as the health minister for the interim to sort out this mess and have some truth and transparency and clean up this absolute garbage that we've seen. I'd make Rod Culleton part of that team as well to restore the original true constitution. And that would be a wonderful start, folks. 4 good men, 1 woman to balance them out with some honesty and some integrity, and start from there and start to clean up this mess. We can only live in hope. We have lost. Where is Ben? Let's check have we got Ben? We don't have Ben. Hey, hold on. We might have him here. Hey,
how you going?
Hey, brother, what's going on?
I'm a little bit technically challenged, Davo.
I thought I was. I thought I was the techno Gumby. All you had to do was click on a link.
I don't know. I've never used Zoom before, so it was all new to me. So yeah, I had to get my wife to come and sort it out.
That's why we usually start 10 minutes early, because 10 minutes is okay for most techno gummies. But you needed a full. What did you need, mate? 25 minutes. Hey, that's all good, mate. Look, better late than never. And I was just enjoying having a little bit of a ramble about some of the things I saw the other night at the AMPS Australian Medical Professional Society event in Nerang, which was in Brisbane the following night as well. That was awesome. That really, I guess, uplifted my spirits, and that's why I wanted to bring you on tonight, Ben. You've been on an incredible journey, and we'd never met before until we saw your photos popping up in the thread. And somehow you managed to drop 50 kilos.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a transformation. So, and one of the first questions that people ask me is, "Oh, what diet did you do? Are you doing diet and exercise?" And they're the obvious things that that people assume. And yeah, of course, there's diet, there's exercise, but I did no particular diet. Right. I just watched what I ate, those kinds of things. But what was really happening, and one of the things that I learned was that people hang on to a lot of emotional weight, and so what I've actually been doing, and what the main thing I've been doing, is been going through a lot of healing through my mind, healing in my heart and soul. And those things, what I noticed was every time I had a breakthrough in my mental health, or spiritually, I found that it came with a drastic drop in weight.
So let me jump in there, Ben. I'm trying to get first of all, if you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm not far off you, mate. I'm 47, going on 48. So
just a youngster.
Yeah,
mate. I'd love to ask you, when did you first start dropping the weight? What sort of time frame? What sort of time frame are we talking here?
Okay, so we're sort of talking around about the time I went on stress leave, which was due to having to, work was forcing everyone to get the wax, which I'm a bit of a stubborn bastard. When somebody tells me you've got to do something, I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
So it was around about January last year, and I didn't realize at the time how.
So wait a second. January last year, so it took over 18 months ago.
Yeah. So what had happened is when I left work, I'd gone under stress leave through mental health issues and whatnot, and I'd probably dropped about 10 kilos just from leaving work. I had no idea how unhappy I was at work. And
What line of work were you doing, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in mining, so in mining processing for about 17 years.
You know, it's incredible how many blokes I speak to from that industry who say the same thing, that it destroys their mental health. There's a lot of depression out there in the mines. Why is
Oh,
that?
absolutely. I mean, well, I mean, I did FIFO for a few years, and just the amount of bullying, and it is very much a drinking culture as well. So you go up to a mine, you're up there for a couple of weeks, and like I used to think I was in prison for 2 weeks. That's kind of how it felt, you know. Yeah, it really wasn't nice. And you go up there, the food is.
Did you get your own room, or was it like your own? Was it like a cell, or did you have to share a room with a couple of other
I don't
miners?
like a cell. Yeah, you have a back to back. So because it was 2 and 2, there was a guy.
Two and
So
two.
they'd have
2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
yeah 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So I'd have another guy who flew in when I flew out, and he would take over the room. So he had his own cupboard, his own drawers, but we'd have the same bed. You'd have a little ensuite. But it really was just a sort of dirty, manky sort of a room that, an old single bed that's probably been slept in by about 50 different blokes. And,
Don't turn on the UV light, bro.
No, you wouldn't want to. You certainly wouldn't want to.
Oh, wow. It sounds like hell. But, I guess you get paid well for the role. But I hear that the mental health toll outweighs the rewards, the financial rewards.
I would say it does, most definitely. I've come to a realization I'll never go back to mining. So as I've mentioned to you before, my future will lie in helping people, because one thing that this transformation has taught me is that I have made a few discoveries where I can actually help people find happiness and find spiritual happiness as well.
Mate, it's such an epic story, because I remember reading a book a long time ago by a guy called Stuart Wilde. I don't know if everyone knows of Stuart Wilde, but he wrote, I guess, what you'd call some new age classics. This is when I was right down the sort of new age spirituality path. And he wrote a very famous book called The Force. He wrote an equally famous book called The Trick to Money is Having Some. And he wrote a really, really awesome little book called Weight Loss for the Mind. And it was something I love, because it talks about what you're going to share with us, and I'd love you to elaborate on this evening, is about this idea of how weight loss in the mind and the heaviness that we carry around inside us, once we start to drop that, it starts to sort of manifest for us physically, and we will actually shed this stuff. And I'd love to know how much of, in your journey, Ben, this weight loss of the mind correlated to, I guess, your changes to your diet and lifestyle and your training and so on. So give us a bit of an insight to that over the last 18 months.
Okay, well, first of all, I actually dropped about 26 kilos before starting diet and exercise. So to give you a bit of an idea of how powerful the mind and the heart is, that was one thing. So the biggest thing was after coming out of the mining industry, alcohol was a band-aid. It was a big band-aid, and I was drinking probably somewhere between 12 and 14 beers a day on a regular day. Yeah, it's quite a lot. Yeah.
What was your max weight? What did your top weight come in at?
So in 2011, my wife and I went to Las Vegas, got married, and I think I was at my heaviest then. I was about 173 kilos.
Stop it. That's big, bro. 173.
Yeah.
That's double me.
Yeah. Well, it's double what I'm supposed to be. I'm sure of it.
Wow, 173, bro. That's a lot of beef. That's amazing. Well,
to give you a bit of a visualization, only about 2 years ago, I was able to sit on the couch, Homer Simpson style, and rest my beer or my bowl of food on my stomach.
Wow.
And it would sit there level.
Wow. I see. I've never actually had that experience of I've put on weight before, but I've never had that experience of getting obese.
Morbidly obese, definitly.
Yeah. How before we get into the weight loss, how much was it affecting you, just your lifestyle being that heavy?
Well, I never really let it affect me too much. I never really thought about it much, you know. I avoided the scales a bit, you know, but I had a very physical job anyway. So even though I was fat, I was actually able to move quite well because I was constantly doing stairs at work. I was constantly, you know, like I measure it on my phone. I'd be walking 16, 17 kilometers a day.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Doing rounds up and down stairs, doing readings, doing samples, all those kinds of things that you do in mining, you know.
Did you get anyone calling you chubby, calling you fat? Did wifey
Oh,
ever
yeah.
have to go at you and say, "Hey, come on, Ben, time to drop a couple of kegs"? Anything like that?
My wife never really, she doesn't care, you know. She's a beautiful person. She never worried about that kind of thing. So no, she never really said anything. She would say, you know, about the drinking, you know, you should slow down and all that kind of thing, which I never did until obviously recently. But the funny thing is, I when I was working FIFO, I used to get it all the time at work, you know. And I would call it a level of bullying where, you know, sort of on your swing day where everybody's sitting around having a few drinks, trying to have fun. And I remember a specific time, one guy sitting there going, "Aren't you unhappy? Like, don't you need to lose weight, or don't you, you know?" And this guy was a gym junkie, and I was like, "No, I'm not really unhappy. I don't really think about it, you know."
Yeah,
And I didn't, and I basically just ignored it, if you know what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah. Was it? Yeah. It doesn't sound like it was particularly vicious. It was probably just a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for? Just thoughtless by the sounds of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it did affect me. I mean, because after that particular incident, I did end up having an anxiety attack and
Yeah.
having to be flown home. So,
Yeah. Really.
um, yeah, yeah. So, you know, I was suffering a lot of anxiety and depression, which has actually led to my stress leave now that I'm on. So, um,
Full on. And so I'm gathering part of the alcohol, 12 to 14 beers a day. Was that part of the anxiety cycle? Because I know when I've been in the anxiety cycle, I would have a few drinks, that would take the edge off.
yeah,
Anxiety would be fine, pick up the phone, have a laugh, chat to the boys, watch something on telly, whatever. And then I would find the alcohol though the following day would increase the anxiety when I woke up. And then I'd sort of get through the day, and then as the afternoon sort of came on, if the anxiety would be there, then I'd pop a drink early in the afternoon. That would lower the anxiety. No anxiety, couple of drinks. Were you in that sort of cycle?
yeah. And it gets earlier and earlier. And I mean, on my days off, you know, I'd start, you know, it's after 12 o'clock, you know, start crack open a beer sort of thing, you know, like
Yeah.
whatever I was doing at home, whether I was working around the house or whatever, you know, like, yeah,
What
that'd
what,
be
what was
exactly
what
what
was
happened.
what was your favorite beer, by the way? What was your beer of choice?
Well, favorite beers, geez, I'm drinking all sorts really, but I was always partial to a Pilsner. It
Yep.
was always my favorites. Yeah, James Squire Pilsner is one of my favorites, but um, I did try, you know, the Han Super Dries and all that, you know, trying to do the low carb thing, you know,
Yeah.
but that didn't really help. I mean, let's be
No.
honest, it's still drinking a lot of beer, so
Yeah, and it's a lot of alcohol too. It's just the alcohol. It's just
it is.
the useless calories. Um, what about now? Do you still enjoy beer now, or have you just dropped it altogether?
Well, I got to a stage, so probably about 6 months after leaving mining, I did get to a stage. Like I remember going to my uncle's birthday, and I got kind of sick. Like I drank too much, and I got kind of sick, and I stopped drinking for a few days, and then I started again. But about 3 weeks after that, I just didn't feel like it anymore,
Mm,
and I realized that at that point that it was the mining industry, it was my job that had really pushed me into this cycle. And so I was able to get out of that cycle through, you know, not being working in the mining industry anymore. And I stopped drinking. I didn't have a drink for, I don't know, maybe months. I actually didn't time it.
mm,
Um, so I might have had, you know, like I had a few beers the other day. I went to my mum's place, sort of thing. You know, I had a couple of beers over there. four stubbies, that was it, but that's the thing. Like now I can just have like 2 or 3 beers and that's enough.
And so, gosh, it's such an interesting story. So I'm just trying to get a picture of the timeline. You were working your butt off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, drinking heavily. So you're drinking, can you drink on the job, on site? Yes.
You can drink on site, yeah.
Right.
But you do get breath owed. So you got to, my rule was 10 before 10. So 10 beers before 10 o'clock. That was on a work day, obviously. Yeah. Because I was such a big guy, I could process it really quickly, so
right.
Yeah. And yeah. So, but with that, when I stopped drinking, I also had a bit of a drop in weight there. So around Christmas time, I'd lost a total of 26 kilos. And Christmas just gone. And it wasn't until then that I actually started diet and exercise. I thought to myself, well, geez, I'm onto something here. I might as well sort of continue with it.
Wow. And so you've stepped away from the mining industry. The weight started to fall off you. You've sort of organically dropped back on the drinking. And then you said, right, so now we're talking about the halfway mark. So by last Christmas, you've lost almost half your 50 kilos, 25, 26 kilos. And then you've carried this is a lot of weight, man. Like, just to give a visual on this, folks, like the average concrete bag these days, concrete bag's 20 kilos, right? They used to make them 40 kilos, but a bag of concrete now is 20 kilos to save everyone's backs. We're talking 2.5 bags of concrete you were carrying around on you in the form of lard.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now you've dropped half of that. You've dropped over a bag of cement. You dropped over a bag of cement. You've still got the other bag and a bit of cement on you. Talk to me about the next shift. Like, how are you going to drop the next 25, and what did the diet and nutrition look like?
Okay, so what I did, so all along this path, because I was on stress leave, I had to see a psychologist. So there are a lot of things like childhood trauma that I had, alcoholic father, those kinds of things that, still weigh on me a little bit now, that I've been able to work through. There were issues like that. There was, drug abuse in the past, those kinds of things that I really had to work through. And every time I worked through something or, tick something off, or I'd feel really good about it inside, there'd be another drop in weight. As far as diet's gone, I haven't actually been on a specific diet. All I've really done is just try to eat healthy. So, I'll start the day with 4 wheat bix, some psyllium husk for, fiber. Round about lunchtime, I'll have a ham and salad roll or something like that, and just meat and veg for dinner.
Yeah,
I'll have a protein shake, some supplements, those kinds of things.
Mate, well done. So good. So good. And this is the thing. It doesn't have to be like, I eat quite similar. I don't follow a specific diet. I just listen to my body, and I know that if I, say I go out to a nice restaurant and I indulge and I get the ice cream with the cheesecake and a couple of glasses of red or something, I know I've had way more calories than I need to. But then the next day, I'm going to correct that. My saying is, you do the crime, you do the time. That's why I've got that assault bike down there. I know that if I've overindulged, I've done the cheesecake, because I believe, Ben, we're not here. I'll speak for myself. I'm not here to live like a monk. I'm here to experience life. I'm going to have the pancakes. I'm going to enjoy whiskey. If I want the ice cream with the cream and the caramel sauce, I'm going to do that. But I'm gonna make sure I balance the scales. I have a saying, like, every bite of cheesecake's like 30 burpees, right? If you have one, you can add up how many burpees you got to do the following day for every bite of cheesecake, that sort of thing, and you can maintain a healthy lifestyle like that without being overly strict.
Yeah, and I'm much the same. I tell people, because people do ask me all the time about losing weight, and I tell people, if you do have a splurge, just treat it as a reward. Don't be down on yourself, because a lot of people will start a diet or start exercising and not get anywhere, and then they lose motivation, And what I say to people is, don't worry about if you've stepped out or you've eaten something you shouldn't have, or you've had a few too many drinks. Just chalk it up to an experience and just move on. Don't focus on it. Don't tear yourself up about it, because one of the other things that I also tell people is, so a question for you, Davo. What's your soul worth?
Priceless.
Exactly. So when people talk about themselves or they put themselves down, what they have to remember is their self-worth. And that it was a big learning curve for me, after like years of being put down in my childhood, being put down at work, being put down, externally all the time, was finding that inner self-worth, to realize, that there is no amount of money on the face of this earth that could buy your soul or could buy you. And every single person has a self-worth that is greater than all the money in the world. So another thing that I like to tell people is, realize how much you're worth. Don't ever put yourself down. Don't ever fall into that trap, because it does become a cycle. And when people have bad things happening up here or bad things happening in here, it translates to bad habits, bad eating habits, bad exercise habits.
Coping mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly. And people use things as band-aids. So people will use drugs, alcohol, food as a band-aid for something that's not sitting well with them.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of people in there asking, what's the secret to weight loss and so on. I don't think there's necessarily a secret per se. I think it's very much just getting in touch with what's going on with you personally. It sounds like that's exactly what you've done, Ben. I remember there was a stage through high school where I was like a fat, skinny kid, right? I've always had that sort of the lean arms and the skinny legs, but I got really quite portly through the middle. And for quite a while there, my nickname was Fat Dave. That's what everyone called me, Fat Dave. And I wasn't like overly fat, but I was pretty fat. I was pretty chubby. I had a little double chin going on, and it didn't bother me, but it did. And then I've always been someone who I've just had to be mindful of what I eat, and then that's turned into a discipline. And then I've also, got a very good training regime that it's just evolved. That's just what my body needs to do, but it's also my mental health therapy. I've had severe bouts of anxiety, hardcore clinical, depression as well for extended periods of time. And it was really the training that saved my life. I see a lot of people doing breath work and all sorts of Wim Hof, hoo-ha, and God knows whatever else they want to do. That's great. Go and do that. But for me, high intensity, like just smashing my body through, you guys know I use the assault bike. That is going to obliterate any form of Wim Hof breathing out there. It's going to get your endocrine system, your lymphatic system, your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, all at overload. And that's my factory reset. When your phone starts to glitch out and you just got to turn it off and on, that's your factory reset. If I start glitching out and I've had too much screen time, too much noise, too many trolls, that's my reset. And I think everyone's got to find their own reset. Some people's resets are walk in the park.
Yeah.
Some people's resets walking the dog, some people it's yoga, whatever. What about yourself, Ben? Your sorts of resets that you discovered through this?
So one of the things, I was the same, anxiety, depression, all those things. I was actually heavily medicated on pharmaceuticals, which I'm completely off now.
Epic.
Through waking up and realizing what's happening in the world and with the pharmaceutical companies and whatnot, I made a concerted effort to get off. So I was on stomach medication for reflux. I was on probably about 3 or 4 different types of medication for anxiety and depression at once. And I had to work through my own things to actually be able to come off those. And for anybody that is on those and wants to get off them, the one thing I will say is actually contact a doctor. Like do it through medical advice, because if you come off it all at once, you will have a bad reaction.
I will echo that. I will echo that. I remember, I can't remember what they put me on, but I had really bad depression. I had this was about 15 years ago. I had really bad depression. And they put me on, what was it called? It'll come to me, but it was an SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor, whatever they call them. And I'd been using it for a while, and I was just like, I could feel the side effects. I felt like I'd been poisoned, but it was sort of leveling me off a little bit. I wasn't in that real despair with that crazy head noise. And then one day I was just like, no, I'm not doing this. And then 24 hours later, I was just, the wheels were turning, going absolutely crazy, man. And the body went wild. And I remember my glands were all, but I never went back to them, you know?
No, and you know, I certainly won't either. But to get back to your original question, yeah, exercise is actually the thing that I've used to be able to work through my anxiety. So, like at first, when I first started coming off them, if I wanted to go like into the shops or something like that, I would do like a massive 1.5 hour workout. I'd hit the weights and then get on the CrossFit elliptical trainer, and then put headphones on and then go into the shop with my head down, hoodie on, and go and get what I need and then leave, you know. And I'd always forget something because I'd always be sort of anxious. But I'm at a point now where I've managed to sort of work through that, and through working through with a psychologist, and working through my inner demons, and working through my mental health, and working through my heart and my happiness. And that is a key word that I like to use all the time, is happiness. The happier you become, the healthier you become. And yeah, I feel that's the key.
That's really well said. You know, like I swear, all of the stuff, all the crap that I've been able to deal with the last 3.5 years, it's because I had some very serious bouts with depression and anxiety, and I had to work my way through that. So, and that stuff was so dark. Like my own mind had turned on me so badly that compared to the garbage that gets thrown at me, it's nothing. I'm like, that's nothing. You don't know fucking where I've been, motherfuckers. You don't know how dark it got. But through that, you find, you know, your own personal strength. You conquer some demons. And I don't know if they're ever necessarily completely slayed. You know, they sort of still lurk around there a little bit. But, you know, I'm just speaking for myself. They still lurk around, but they don't rule me anymore.
Yeah, and it's about being able to have that mental strength, and you know, strength within yourself to be able to keep them at bay as well, because you know, I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, those demons are still around for me, but you know, I've found coming through a spiritual awakening as such, you know, like I was brought up a Roman Catholic. When I was about 16, I became a born-again Christian. And what happened is I actually got really disillusioned with religion because of churches. I kept seeing money in churches, and it just didn't gel with me. And so I kind of moved away from it. And I see that as a little bit of a downfall in myself, because I didn't allow myself, like I blocked off that spiritual side of myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I liken your spirituality to your heart, to your emotional center. I believe I told you the story the other night when we chatted on the phone about my awakening as such was praying to God one day. I'd seen so much evil in the world as part of waking up, you know, and you talk about it a lot, about having to unplug and having to get away from it. I came to the conclusion one day, I was just like, well, with all this darkness, there has to be light. And so I did actually pray to God and say, look, I want to repent my sins. I want to create an open dialogue with you, you know. and nothing really happened immediately. I went into the shed and I did a big workout. Come inside and I'm sitting in my jocks eating my breakfast sort of thing, and there was a knock at the door. And so I went to the door, answered the door, and a parcel had arrived. So I grabbed the parcel, bring it in, and looked at my breakfast, and I'm like, well, I don't feel like this anymore, so I think I'll go have a shower.
Was it
I was about
the Wheat Bix?
Yeah, it was the Wheat Bix, funnily enough. Yeah.
We can get you on some better brekkie than Wheat Bix, can't we? Come on, bro. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. So yeah, you put the Wheat Bix down. You don't feel like them anymore. They've gone soggy.
Yeah, so yeah, soggy Wheat Bix. So
no, they're not.
I had another knock at the door, which I wouldn't usually have answered because I was in my underwear, but I sort of thought, oh, parcel guys, there must have been another parcel he's forgotten to give us, sort of thing. So go and open the door, and there was two ladies standing there, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
And they said, oh, we're going around door to door today. And it was a Friday, so it wasn't your usual sort of day that they'd go around. And they said, we're giving just a uplifting message to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I could use an uplifting message right now. I said, what is it? And they said, it doesn't matter what your background is, what your beliefs are, but if you talk to God, God will listen. And I said, oh, okay. And they said, God has another name. Do you know what it is? And I said, no. They said, God is known as the hearer of prayers. And that should probably have been enough for me to go, oh, wow, that was my answer. But
wow, yeah.
Yeah, silly me. I didn't recognize it at all. I said, oh, okay, goodbye. Yeah, I thought, geez, that wasn't very uplifting at all, And I went to go hop in the shower, and I was literally stepping into the shower, and a flash went through my mind of the prayer that I'd prayed and the answer I was given, and it was an exact match. And then I felt the touch of God in my heart, and that moment just changed my life completely. I was reduced to tears. I couldn't, wow. I could barely talk. I was just crying, and crying in the shower is not a good look. But
wow.
As I thought about it later, I realized that there was probably only about a 2-minute window that I would have received that message. And I mentioned the fact of being in my underwear because there was a certain amount of vulnerability about it. I would never usually talk to Jehovah's Witnesses at the door. Not usually.
Sorry to laugh, bro. I'm just getting this picture of this soggy bowl of Wheat Bix, your undies. Two Jehovah's Witness ladies come to the front door. You peek around. You got a little bit of like Wheat Bix on your chin, and you think it's the mailman, and then this spiritual message.
Yeah, it was pretty much like that,
Talk about humbling. Talk about being there, in your completely humble, raw form.
Yeah, and again, with that came another drop in weight. Funnily enough, so even though I was sort of consistently exercising, trying to watch what I was eating, it seemed that every single bit of drop of weight came with a breakthrough in my heart, in my mind, and it just flowed out to your body through good habits, through being happier, through
being happier is the key, man. Being happier is the key, but they all kind of feed into each other, like I find that if I'm happy, I'm going to train more often,
Yeah.
and if I'm going to train more often, I'm finally going to be happier. And when I'm happier, I eat better. And when I eat better, I train better. And when I train better, I'm happy. And everything sort of feeds into it. And then it goes the other way. If I'm eating poorly, I don't feel like training. If I don't feel like training, I feel like shit. If I feel like shit, I want to stay in bed. If I want to stay in bed, I'm going to sleep in. If I sleep in, I feel guilty. If I feel guilty, I have a drink. And I get on that track. And this is where we've got to correct our own behaviors. And ultimately, it comes down to us. But we also get that divine inspiration. We get that help.
Yeah, and you're right. Like if you fall into that trap, it does snowball. And funnily enough, the other day when I put those pictures up on Telegram, up on your page there, I had a lot of response, and a lot of people was talking about how inspirational it was. And in some ways, I never really gave myself that kind of credit because it was just something I was doing. But I was incredibly humbled to have one lady, her name Biljana. She messaged me and she said, if you want to go to that retreat, I'll pay half. And I was, at first I thought to myself, I can't accept that. That was my first thought.
Wow.
And I actually prayed on it, and I contacted her and said, look, I wouldn't like to ask something of you because I don't know what your situation is, you can afford it or anything like that. And she said, no, I can afford it. She said, but you've inspired me. You really need to go to this retreat. Wow. So I was able to come up with the other half of the money and book the retreat. As you know, I contacted you straight away, like, wow, this is all happening, and
that's beautiful, man. There's good people out there.
There are some wonderful people out there, Davo, absolutely wonderful people. And she did ask me to give you a message, by the way. She asked for a shout out for the Orthodox Christians on the 7th of January.
Sure. Yeah. Send me a message and tell me more, and I'll blast it out to the channel. I
will do. Yeah.
Yeah. If she's got a link she needs shared or any further information, I'd be more than happy to. But this is the thing. Like, I put up that post earlier. What's the one thing that you've learned? Like the quote that would be the quote of the last 3 or 4 years. And for me, I've found out that your greatest hater will be someone and your best supporter or your best fan or the person who's got your back the most will be a complete stranger. And the amount of strangers who have reached out to me just because I've been outspoken and I've said what a lot of people have just wanted to say, and I've done it consistently because I believe silence is consent, and I don't consent to any of this bullshit, so I'm going to say it, But the amount of beautiful people who have messaged me, who have reached out, who have helped, especially when I got my bank accounts frozen, and then the amount of people who have had my back that I've never met.
It's incredible.
I've never met them. I've never looked them in the eye. And they've never asked for anything in return. They've just helped. And that's why I've never stopped, because I feel like I have an ongoing kind of agreement, here with people who support me and who see what I'm about, and to just keep doing what I'm doing, and we keep doing it together. It's a very, very beautiful thing, man. And it's nice for you to experience and be the recipient of that, because it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I'm very thankful to Biljana for that. But also on that, Dave, your exercise videos, every time you say who's training today, some of those times come when I'm not feeling like training.
Yeah.
And I find those inspirational. I'm like, yes, I'm going to train today. Yes, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go hard. And sometimes I'll see those things and I'll say, right, well, I didn't feel like training. I'm going to go that little bit harder today.
Yeah. No, it's so good to hear, and I do that because it literally saved my life. It did. There's no two ways about it. I remember I had joined a CrossFit gym down in Brookvale in Sydney. I had 2 awesome coaches, and my mental health had sort of been hanging on a knife's edge for a while. And then I had a few events. I lost my sister, 11 years ago. And I was hanging around the wrong people and staying up late and in the wrong crowd and so on. And just had that real part of my life where I was very, very lost. And man, it went downhill. I was using some substances and so on as well. And way too much alcohol. And once you fall in that hole, the sides of that hole get steeper.
Yeah.
So the further you slide in, the harder it is to get out. And that's why a lot of people, they never get out, and that's why I think if you can have a few things in your life that just stop you getting to the depths, I think there's a certain rite of passage in going through the depths as well. Like that rock bottom, that cliche of that rock bottom, they say, is that can be the foundation you rebuild from. And that's what happened for me. Once I hit the rock bottom, I thought, shit, I really can't go much lower than this. I either sail off into the sunset and off to the next world, or start over.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a bit of a mystery. We will never understand why some people choose to start over. You know, I lost several close friends, and I also lost my sister to suicide. You know, and we never know what each individual's journey is. I don't judge it. You know, some people say it's an easy way out. I don't think so. I got to the point where I fully understood it. I was like, this noise, this mental anguish is so unbearable. I understood it. And so I don't judge it. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say it's a coward's way out. I would think it would be something very hard to do, to be perfectly honest. It goes against all your natural instincts of survival. You know what I mean? And the same, you know, I've had my struggles there as well, which probably a little bit personal, but you know, yeah, there've been some dark times there, and that was while I was working FIFO as well. So, yeah, I was actually quite lucky to be saved by my dog. Funnily enough.
Yeah, wow. Oh, Ben, it's wild, you know. And the thing is that there's so many men out there and so many women. There's just so many people out there suffering, and we don't have a system here that is really helping people. You know, there's not enough funding. I think things like Beyond Blue and Lifeline, you know, they have their role to play, but they're not doing enough. You know, and this retreat that we have coming up is something I would like to expand to have a lot more men than just, you know, the 15 that we're going to have there on the day. I'd like to be able to get a couple of hundred, and then you know, do something mixed as well further down the track. Like this is you know, a vision that I have, because you know, we are stronger together. That's what it all comes down to. We all have our personal journeys, but there's a real power in sharing and affirming each other as well.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to this. You know, I'm actually hoping to learn quite a lot about nutrition and detoxing as well. So there are a couple of things that are on the retreat that I believe, you know, are actually going to be very, very helpful for me.
Oh, mate, you know, this is a lot of people are like, how can you guys have a woman the main facilitator for a men's retreat? Now, Amanda's not going to facilitate everything. She's mostly going to facilitate the nutrition, the detoxing, and the training. The men's stuff, Roland and I will be more taken care of. But as far as Amanda being there as a 3 times World CrossFit champion, she's 53 years old. She just had hip surgery, and she's probably 2 or 3 times stronger and fitter and more disciplined than all of us put together. She is such a weapon, and she is such an incredible coach. Like, and so the skills that we're going to be teaching, this sort of training and her style of training, you'll take that with you for the rest of your life. You know, and
Yeah, absolutely.
this is where it's going to be powerful. Then the next one, we'll bring the guys and the girls together, and we'll do part 2 very shortly. But Ben, we're going to start to wrap up the call over the next couple of minutes. What is your, I guess, your final message to anyone out there who's looking to sort of make a major transformation in their lives, but they're not sure where to start?
Okay, so what I've done is split my life basically into 3 categories. That'd be my personal life, so my friends, my family life, and my work life. And what I did is go through those systematically and look for the things that serve me well. And those are the things that I keep and promote. The things that don't serve me well, I look and say, well, can I get rid of it? If I can't get rid of it, I look to distance myself from it in a respectful way, you know. So it might be a family member or something that is extremely toxic or going downhill that can't be helped, or, you know, it's just a bad relationship. Those are the sorts of things to distance yourself from. And then to recognize the things that are actually bringing you down. Once you recognize those things, they're the things that you have to work through. Make progress on those things. Look for happiness in your mind, in your soul, and also realize your self-worth. You know, don't ever put yourself down. Always pump yourself up, because you are worth more than you know.
Mate, beautifully said. And I think that's one thing that you know, that your final words there, we're worth more than we know. And how do we get to that knowing? You know, it's a real challenge. And you know, sometimes I try and, you know, look at my own self-worth, and the way our minds work, is our minds, for some reason, they're hardwired to default to our shortcomings. You know, and I try and look at the good aspects of myself, but my mind automatically defaults to, oh, you're bad at this, you should be better at that. And we beat ourselves up. We look in the mirror and we look for the faults. We look at our past, and we look at our regrets and this sort of stuff. And it has to be a real conscious pushback against the inherent kind of negativity of the mind. And that's the battle that we're all in, man. It's been a pleasure to have you on, Ben.
Yeah, lovely talking to you, Davo.
Your story is inspirational, mate. Look forward to seeing you. You're flying all the way out from Perth. That's proper commitment to come to the east coast of Australia. It'll be my pleasure to show you around, hopefully get you in the ocean as well at some stage, and looking forward to meet you properly, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, Davo.
It's a pleasure. Thank you to everyone who's been here on the chat tonight with our own Ben Pedro. Thank you, Andy Grace. Thanks, Annabelle, Chris Kelhar, Courtney, Deb, Dennis, Greg, Leslie McKenzie, Lily Pond, Lynette, Mark Young, Melanie Reeves, Natasha on the iPhone, Pauline, Peter Kelly, Rosetta, Sarah Wentworth, Super Tom, and everyone else who I might have missed. Thank you so much for being here. We'll do it all again. It looks like Monday night we have DJ Tidy, huge story there. Internationally renowned DJ sharing his story of back injury. Look forward to seeing you all on the call. Over and out. We'll see you all soon. Have a great night, folks. Bye for now.